So this is kind of the end, but actually it's also kind of the beginning. So what we did was we replaced these two wheels. This is the rear and the front. And when I first started this, I took off this cover plate. There were 2 set screws. And then I loosened this screw, which held the spring for the arm. And I did that so I was able to have free access to this arm and I could pull it back and forth without any tension. So that's easy to do. Just loosen it. You'll see it from underneath. You go underneath the machine and there's the spring. Once it's loose, that spring drops down and then this arm will be able to come forward and backwards without any tension. So what else I had to do in order to get this, the wheels changed, was I had to take this needle bar and I took it out, which I don't think was necessary, but I did. And to remove that, what I did was it's held by these 2 screws, this screw and this screw. And what you do is you rotate your machine so that's visible and they're easy to access. You see how that floats back and it floats forward. Well, you want to put it in a position where you can get easy access. This screw and this screw. You don't need to take the screws all the way out, just loosen them. That's going to give you enough freedom so that you're going to be able to rotate this bar and you can pull it out. Now, the other thing that you're going to have to do is with your looper. Your looper is going to be in the way of your bar. So you're either going to have to rotate your looper out of the way, and I don't think you can get it without taking it off. So I did take the looper off. You loosen this collar, it slides forward. Your looper, then you can either twist it up or take it out, whatever you want to do. But that needs to be free. So your looper is free. Then when the looper is free, then you can rotate this, wiggle it back and forth, slide it out, and get your needle bar out of the way so you've got free access to your disc, front and back. The front disc is easy to remove. The front disc has a set screw right here. Loosen that set screw. Loosen this top screw first. This will unscrew out of the disc holder, which is down here, this disc arm. Loosen this. This unscrews and it completely lifts off. Put it back on. You do the same thing. Put this on, screw it all the way down to where it's flush. See how it's flush? Then tighten this. That holds it secure so it's not going to move. And then tighten your center screw. So, yeah, after I had my arm off, my needle bar arm off, then it was rotate your machine so the set screws are visible. So I've rotated it once. There's one there. I've got to rotate it a little bit more to get the other one. Down here at the bottom, I've got to keep rotating it because I want to get, it rotates slow. But I want to get the, I want to get this gear bar around so that those set screws show. And then you can see how I did the rest after the next video. We're in the process of doing another item on this Bonis A machine head. What we're doing is we're changing the wheels out, the discs. And the reason was I had to do that was because this actually got shipped to me and it got damaged in shipping, so I had to replace the discs. So I went from the original discs that it came with were an 18 size disc. See the width of the thread there? the teeth. And what I'm putting on is a 16. And the 16 gives you a little deeper grab on your fur when you're sewing, a little thicker fur. This is mainly for like joining. If you've got a mink coat, you want to join the side seams and stuff up. And it works good for probably more let out work. You know, you can do it with this, but I'm going to use this machine mostly for, you know, everyday use. And so I want 16 wheel on this. So we're going to change this out. This machine probably originally was done with either a 21 wheel, a 18 wheel, which is this one, and a 16 wheel. So they go from, you know, thicker, the 16, 18 is a little finer, and a 21 is for let out work, and that's the finest. So I took the front assembly off, and that's really pretty easy to do. And I did that so I'd have access to, you know, my rear wheel and get that going. Now I'm going to lift this cover off, and the covers just come off, so not a big deal. And what I did was I took this front plate off, which just unscrews from right here and right there. So that was easy. Now what that does is that gives you access to the gear shaft, and the gear shaft has 2 set screws in it, one here and one here. So you want to rotate your machine so that you've got access to both these 2 screws and the original wheel that was on here, the original wheel assembly. These 2 screws, there's one there and there's one there. So rotating your machine will get you access to those set screw points. So what I did was to make this arm easier to deal with, so I didn't have to have it in my way, so to speak, was I went and I loosened this screw right here. This screw is connected to this thick spring underneath. The thick spring is connected to, I gotta tip this back. The thick spring is connected to this arm, and that gives the tension on that arm to open and close your discs. So what I did was I loosened this screw, and you can take it all the way out if you want. I had it all the way out when I began, and I just wanted to show it to you what it was like with it there. So this is going to loosen, and this will come off. And what that does is you can take this all the way apart. It's got a thing inside here that keeps it secure, but you can take it all the way apart. And then what that's going to do is that's going to let us open and close this arm easy. Now I have this on a cake stand or a cake tray, and what I like about that is that if I have any screw that might fall down, it falls in my cake tray. And usually, and not only that, this cake tray, it slides. I can slide front to back and not have to lift up this machine. It's heavy. So what I also have is a assortment of screwdrivers, and you're going to need little tiny ones, and you're going to need thin ones that have a good handle on it so you get enough torque. You can't, this might be the same width blade as the other one, but I've got more torque with this, but yet smaller spaces, you're going to need tiny ones. So most all the screws in this are flathead screws, so you don't need to, I don't even think there's a Phillips screw on this whole thing. So anyway, what we're going to do is this. I already changed the wheel on this, but I'm going to show you how I did it. So what I did first was I loosened these 2 screws. I'm going to try and get some good light. I loosened those 2 screws right here that hold the wheel on, and the wheel is held on to, is holding on to a shaft that goes all the way from here down in the center of this spring through this gear drive, and it comes out the bottom right there. You can see it. So what I did was I wanted to make sure I had this a good measurement. So I took my card, and I just used this instead of a like whatever, and I put this up there, and when I had it flush before I unscrewed anything, right where I have that tape line is where how much of that rod or shaft was exposed. So I knew. Now you want this on an incline, because what you're going to do is when you start tapping this, you don't want to tap it down into your table. And I was given a good recommendation by Mr. Bonis to use a brass punch, and I bought a set, and this is the hammer that it came with. It's got a nice nylon tip, and so what you do is you loosen these two screws up here, and that will let your top wheel come off. Then you loosen these two screws, and you want them nice and loose. You don't want them to fall out, but you want them nice and loose. And I'm going to take this top wheel off and come back and show you what it looks like. So I loosened these two screws on here, and I loosened these two screws down here, so they're loosey. And I took my brass punch, and what I did was drop it. So I've got another one. So I took my brass punch, and then what I did was I lightly tapped that until I use that little screw, I use that little hammer, but this works too. So that shaft is going down. And what happens is, once that shaft is down far enough, you can lift this right off. So I'm going to continue to tap that down a little bit, and then I'll be right back. So I tapped that down far enough, and now my wheel will lift off. So once my wheel is lifted off, you replace it. This is my new one. I'm just going to set it back on because I know that's what I want. And if I wanted to put the old one back on, if I wanted to switch wheels back later on, hey, you can switch wheels back. So I am going to go back and tip this up from underneath and use my mallet and tap that shaft back up to the measurement that was on my card. So I want that shaft to be at the top of that line. And then when I get that done, I'm going to retighten these two screws. After I get those two screws tightened, this should be flush at the top. And when I get that flush with the shaft at the top, I'm going to tighten these two screws. So I'll be right back. So I've got this top shaft flush with my wheel. And what I did was I put my finger on top of that, and when I was tapping, I could feel when that shaft had actually met and become flush with that top wheel. And then I double checked, and my measurement on that shaft turned out to be perfect. So now what I'm going to do is, again, tighten these two screws. After I've got these two screws tight, then I'm going to tighten my screws on my wheel. This was the original front wheel that I took off, and you can see how it's rusty. I use WD-40, I use denatured alcohol, I use a couple of different things to get the rust off. And this was one that I did on another machine that I did earlier. And you can see how nice that comes out when you when you get it done. Now, the new wheel that I got, that I put on here, had a different system inside. It didn't have these round, kind of like little peg bearings. And what happened is, when I took this off originally, all right, you take off the needle plate, you lift that up, and then you'll see this. And each one of these little bearings, they're a round bearing, can be lost if you aren't careful taking this off. So you lift the top wheel off, and then there are 12 of these bearings. And, you know, they had rust on them. So I took and, you know, cleaned those off. Now, if I had got a different type of wheel replacement, this one came with a different bearing system on the inside. So all I'm saying is, if depending on what style wheel bearing system you get, keep those bearings, shine them up, smooth them off, put them back in, and it goes around that center post that screws into this front arm. So it goes like that, screws into that front arm down there, and then your wheel sets on top of that. So depending on what you get, don't throw these out, because you might need to reuse them. Okay? I just want to go over a few things that I thought were important for this project to have on hand. The first was this cake pan, metal cake pan. It is heavy duty enough that if I needed to pick up and move this off my bench, the whole thing fits right in this cake pan. I can lay the machine down. I lined it with a piece of cardboard to absorb some of the excess oil. And then when I went to move that shaft for the rear wheel down, it was sturdy enough that I braced this machine just up on the edge right there and was able to tap that spindle down. So yeah, use a cake pan. Really worked great. Now, the other thing I liked was I got 2 small glass jars. I use that for my parts washing. So let them soak in the old stuff, and then transferred it to the new jar, wiped them off as I went. The machine itself is completely oiled with SAE 40 weight oil. That's what the machine calls for. Oiling ports and everything else that I could see on the inside, I oiled up. And when I started cleaning, I really used the WD-40 to loosen all the oil that was coagulated on the inside, and it's good penetrating, so it gets your nuts and screws all nice so that you can, you know, easily move them. Then what I bought was a brass punch set. I think it was like Amazon, maybe 20 bucks. Came pretty quick. Lots of paper towels and lots of assorted flat screwdrivers, paintbrush, toothbrush, and a couple of pliers. So you want to, and I had a little hammer besides, the mallet hammer that came with the punch set. So anyway, I used just about everything, and I think it turned out pretty nice. So good luck if you decide to do one of these. You know, they're worth restoring.